Hi guys. Well, I'm reflecting on all the areas I covered over the years as a journalist. There isn't any doubt that for many, many years, the highest levels of the United States government have been involved in the drug trade. The CIA, working through the leadership of George H.W. Bush, later vice president and then president, and followed by his son being president and his sons being governors, flew heroin out of Mexico and the Golden Triangle into the U.S. to enrich himself and his family. In the 80s and 90s, it continued with the help of Bill Clinton, whose career in Arkansas politics from his time as Arkansas state attorney to governor was absolutely committed to cocaine. He financed his presidential campaign through drug money. This has all been so well documented that there shouldn't be any doubt. The crazy thing is that nobody knows and nobody talks about it. Even Donald Trump, when he speaks of these guys as being political enemies and corrupt, he doesn't know. And this is what is so difficult for people to grasp. Even if they hear that this was going on, it's like isolated information lying on the floor that really doesn't change their outlook. I met Oliver North one time. I was a 16-year-old naive kid, and I went up to him just as I'd gone up to football players. He was somebody I'd seen on TV with Rush Limbaugh, and for me, that meant he was magical. Gradually, I came to see I had been on the wrong side of history. You realize after a while that, you were given a fairy tale as narratives. This research is so extensive, but often the authors haven't known how to market their books, and they've endured rivalries with others in the alternative media. And some authors who have dealt with CIA drug dealing, with the Bush and the Clinton drug dealing, some of these authors' names are like Peter Dale Scott, Gary Webb, Michael Rupert. Terry Reid, Daniel Hopsicker. Terry Reid, in his book Compromise from a Personal Account, he was involved in these programs, saw it firsthand, and then tried to get out. In fact, Terry Reid's documentary, Compromised, the same name as his book, it's on my BitChute channel. He tells about a meeting that he went where Oliver North was there, Bill Barr, later Trump's Attorney General, Felix Rodriguez, Bill Clinton. He wanted to get out once he found out what he was a part of. And they tried to pin drug charges on him, but he was able to show in court that, no, it was them that were trafficking drugs. And although they've killed some of these journalists that have dealt with these themes, they've had their livelihoods threatened, they've had their television shows stopped, they've come after their families. The Bushes and the Clintons have never sued any of these authors for claiming that they were involved in the drug trade. They've never sued them because it, like in the trial where they got the assassins of Barry Seals, they were able to prove that as soon as they arrived from Medellin, where they were working with Pablo Escobar, as soon as they arrived in the United States, they were taking orders from Oliver North. So it doesn't go well in these court cases. And these same narco-traffickers that center around the Clintons and the Bushes, these are the ones who brought us the false flag attacks of September 11th, as well as the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. They killed children. The Clintons killed children. Remember, in the Oklahoma City Murrah building bombing, there was a nursery, there was a daycare center that got killed. Reagan's White House was stacked with narco-traffickers on the cabinet level. And even though I know Reagan's a hero for a lot of people, his hands are also dirty with this. Even going back to his time as governor of California. And it goes back to the overthrow of the American government by this criminal element in 1963 with the assassination of JFK, which is what the researcher Daniel Hopsicker has shown. He brings the drug dealing of the 80s and 90s all together with the Bay of Pigs, the Kennedy assassination, Watergate. This is something that connects all these events in American history, and a lot of the same players like Felix Rodriguez. How do we know what we know about this so that we can speak of it as historical fact? A lot of it comes from when foreign governments, from Mexico to Nicaragua, capture the flights loaded with cocaine, or they do an investigation and they arrest U.S. government agencies. Operation 40, we see that later Porter Goss, who was head of the CIA under George W. Bush, he was involved in this cocaine trade. A lot of it comes from congressional inquiries, like the House Select Committee on Assassins, otherwise known as the Church Committee for Senator Frank Church. A lot of what we know comes from the good people in law enforcement doing their job, who arrest, do drug busts, and then find, we've arrested our higher-ups. We even hear in the book Burying the Boys by Daniel Hopsicker, we hear of a couple cases where the good people in government are staking out, they're getting ready to do a drug bust, and they find out that, no, got to let that flight go, it's got the Bush brothers on it. This happens over and over again. Jeb Bush, as governor of Florida, also up to his eyeballs in cocaine trafficking. Some of it comes from court cases. If you know about American politics in the 20th century, you'll recognize names like Felix Rodriguez and Oliver North, Robert Mueller, Bill Barr. Rodriguez was recently a guest on Tucker Carlson's show. I mean, recently in the last 6 months, he killed Che Guevara. Tucker Carlson doesn't know anything about this, and that's true for a lot of these people that are in the alternative media. And this is what's so crazy, is that those that try to buck the system, they're completely ignorant about the narco state which continues to run the American government. How can something that is so well documented still be such a secret? I know the answer intellectually, because I know that people don't care and they think that they know everything and they don't research, but it's hard for me to grasp this level of ignorance. But it took me decades and decades to realize the full extent of it, because I thought that it was only, for a long time I thought it was only the bad apples in the intelligence apparatus. I didn't realize just how extensive it was, including the direct involvement of presidents and vice presidents and governors. Asa Hutchinson is another name. He ran for president last year. He is another name, also governor of Arkansas. He was very involved in the drug trade. If only the truth about September 11th would come into the public consciousness, a lot of this would fall automatically. However, we truly live in a world of hijacked narratives. So I'm asking all of you to share these ideas, share these videos. I've compiled a lot of documentaries on this channel about CIA drug dealing and the role of the Bushes and the Clintons. You know the movie American Made with Tom Cruise and others like Air America starring Mel Gibson? They deal with CIA drug dealing. It shows you just how below, it's just below the surface of American culture. It's complicated though, because enormous energy is put in changing historical details. And after these movies, like the one with Tom Cruise, magazine articles come out in like Vice and Rolling Stone that can be very convincing, and they talk about separating facts from fiction, but it's usually nothing more than propaganda pieces. There was these articles after American Made saying that Barry Seals started working for the CIA in the 80s, but we know he started working in the late 50s. And this is one of the great takeaways of the book Burying the Boys. And I also recommend Welcome to Terrorland. I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record about these Daniel Hopsicker books, but it's important because Welcome to Terrorland establishes the nexus of the drug flights with September 11th. And we have to be the media, and so please share these documentaries far and wide. I've mirrored a lot of them on this channel. At the trial for Clintons in the Congress and Senate to have him impeached over the Monica Lewinsky affair, the man who was prosecuting him on the Republican side was Asa Hutchinson, who also ran for president during the Republican primary of 2024. And he's somebody who's trafficked drugs with the Clintons during the 80s. And I mean, we can see here how the fox is literally guarding the hen house. So like Kenneth Starr, when he did these investigations of the Clintons, he appeared to be against him, but he whitewashed all their involvement with drugs. This is how the Hegelian dialectic works. They work both sides. We're talking about crime here, and a highly developed theatrical performance involving both political parties, even those like the Clintons and the Bushes, who appear on the surface to be political enemies. And all that I've read about American foreign policy in Latin America from the point of view of the left, of the Noam Chomsky, Howard Zinn variety, even books like, from a more conservative point of view, like Understanding Central America by Walker and Booth, they're also critical of American foreign policy in the region. All of these historians, they leave out the driving force behind American foreign policy in Latin America, from Argentina to Chile to Central America, which the driving force was to have governments in Latin America to maintain friendly governments to the drug trade. And often communists or left-leaning governments, they didn't want any pact, no deal with the devil about cocaine flights. And so we had this phenomenon of the cocaine coups. If I have been blessed by being able to connect the dots, it also comes with great responsibility. It's a heavy burden that I bear knowing all of this. The reaction to this news from people when they hear that the White House and the office of the President of the United States is a melting pot for narco-trafficking, it's just so far from most people's reality that it would be like telling them their grandmother was a prostitute and involved in murder. Such is the gap between the public perception and the reality. And it's here we can see the motivation for the real hatred of Trump and the demonization of Donald Trump in the media, and why the narco-trafficking controlled media hates him so much. Because Donald Trump doesn't come from this criminal element, even though he is only partly aware of it. Any drug trafficking organization is going to need production, transportation, distribution, and protection. The production is carried out by foreign drug lords. The transportation is carried out by U.S. military ships and airplanes, because only they can fly into U.S. military bases. The distribution is carried out by mafia that work closely with intelligence apparatus. I'm not going to say a lot of these names, like Don Lasseter, because you wouldn't recognize them unless you'd researched these themes. But, the CIA works with mafia that then distribute the drugs. Protection is carried out by the entire U.S. society. This is the U.S. Army that can be called in to ruin governments that don't want cocaine flights on their soil. Remember, before Hugo Chavez came to power in Venezuela, the CIA flew tons of drugs every week from Venezuela, working with production from Colombian drug cartels. And, they put a stop to that. And now Bill Barr, Trump's Attorney General, who was also very involved with drug trafficking in the 80s, read Terry Reid's book, Compromised. He brought drug charges against Nicolas Maduro. I mean, talk about the pot calling the kettle black. This is a huge level of hypocrisy. All the institutions of the United States have been mobilized to serve the function of protection for the narco-traffickers. Protection also means getting rid of competition, getting rid of freelancers and independent small-time dealers. What boggles my mind is how there are still people in the Drug Enforcement Agency who don't know that their agency is just as much involved in transporting drugs as getting rid of the competition, so their friends in the CIA can have a high price on the street. Or maybe they're just stupid. We're talking about a highly sophisticated crime model that uses self-deception. The authors that have dealt with this theme have so well researched this, and yet it's slipping into history and will probably be forgotten. I don't know to what extent this trafficking is still going on, but I suspect that it is, although my research centers mostly around the 80s and 90s. Although we know that George H.W. Bush, Papa Bush, was trafficking drugs out of Laos in the 70s. This is the secret history of the Vietnam War, the war in Laos, the war in Cambodia, is the heroin that was coming back. Barry Seals was also involved in this. Well, that's all for now, folks. It's up to us to be the media, so please share, share, share.